hit record now, so you should get the notification that we're recording. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the information session. You're all very welcome this evening, and please feel free to join us for some or all of this evening's proceedings. First, I want to welcome our lovely panel that we have who are going to be joining us. So we've got Dr. Orna O'Brien, who is our director, and she also teaches on the programme. We have 3 students who are representing our student panel, or I should say 2 current students and 1 former student. So Evelyn, who has just completed her first year of the programme. We have Sinead as well, who has just completed her 3rd year of the programme. And then we have Rory, who graduated from the programme in 2020. We've also got John O'Brien with us, who's one of our current lecturers on the programme. And then John will also be doing the sample lecture a little bit later on this evening. So please feel free to post any questions if you'd like in the chat. Myself and Orna will be monitoring the chat over the course of this evening. And if there's anything that occurs to you, our student panel is very open and honest, so they will definitely give you the real story behind it all. So if there is something that you really want to understand or to find out about, feel free to do so. I'm going to do about 15 minutes of a brief overview about the programme, and then we'll go into our panel who can talk to us for about half an hour about different aspects of the programme. And if there's anything that you want them to address, please do shout and let us know. And then for the rest of the session, we'll have a little break then just after that panel session. And then John will come on then from 7 to 7:45 to do his sample lecture. And then myself and Orna will hang on then for the last 15 minutes or so for any questions, if anyone has any additional questions at that point. So before I move on, can I just ask Orna if she wants to say a few words of welcome to everyone?
Absolutely. Thanks a million, Kate, and welcome everyone to this evening, especially on such a beautiful evening. It's glorious outside, so thank you for coming along this evening. As Kate has mentioned, you know, there's a great session in terms of getting to know the students and the alumni, as well as tasting one of our lectures later on with John. If at any stage you have any questions, feel free to direct message me. I'm here in the background to assist with any questions you have. The program genuinely is a very accessible part-time program. I know a lot of you might be thinking about going back to education over maybe the last few months or the last number of years. So I suppose to those of you who've done it, you'll know how quickly time passes when you're on the program. I've said it a few times at different events that, you know, the 2 years of the diploma pass very quickly, easily. Some of you might even have been thinking about doing your diploma or degree for the last 2 or 4 years. So I think if you feel at the end of the session this is for you, I'd certainly say to jump on that train, because time passes quickly, and as Sinead, Evelyn and Rory will attest, you could still be thinking about doing the programme, or you could be out the other side and have your diploma or your degree, or be like Rory now on your master's road and out the other side. So I really hope you enjoy the lineup Kate's put together this evening. And as I say, if anything strikes you at any stage during the sessions, please feel free to reach out. We look forward to hearing from you. So I'll pass back to you now, Kate.
Great stuff, thanks. So I'd like to virtually welcome you here to the Quinn School of Business, which is what you're seeing here. And this is the home to the business undergraduate programs in UCD. And UCD itself is ranked within one of the top 1% of higher education institutions worldwide. We have overall as a university a student population of about 33,000 students. And the UCD College of Business, which is where you would be based and located, is one of 60 schools worldwide to hold what's called the triple accreditation. And that's from the US, Europe and UK accrediting bodies. So those are sort of marks or hallmarks for the quality of your degree. Within the Quinn School of Business itself, we have a range of innovative learning spaces for students aimed at enhancing the student experience. So what we have, one of the main things that we have is our UCD Moore Centre for Business, which was opened in 2019. And it's geared towards making spaces really for modern business education. So our students do get to use those, and more we have more access to those, particularly And in fact, John, you'll be happy to hear that you will have access to some of the nice digital collaboration rooms for your sessions next year. So you can think about how you might use those spaces. But also to think about the fact that when you are a UCD student, you have access to a whole range of services and resources beyond those that are located within our own building and the Queen's School. So the Careers Network, which is something that our students tend to use quite a bit. We like to bring in our career and skills consultant at various points throughout your time when you're on campus, so that you can have one-to-one meetings with her. But also then you have access to all of the health facilities, the gym, the swimming pool, medical services, counselling services, all of this, the sports activities that are related there, and the societies and clubs. We also have 5 libraries in UCD. The main one in Belfield is the James Joyce Library, which is the one our students would be most familiar with, and the ones that the students would use most of the time. The program itself, it is designed for mature students and for students who are working and wish to continue working while studying for their degree or their diploma. It's delivered monthly on a Friday and a Saturday. And the first 2 years of the program, which year 1 and year 2, are your diplomas component of the program. So in your diploma, you'll complete 30 credits each year, which gives you a total of 60 credits at the end of year 2, when you'll receive your level 7 diploma in business studies. Once students complete their second year successfully, they then have the option or can make the decision whether they wish to progress into the degree stage and into year 3. You don't need a minimum or a specific GPA to enter into year 3. You just have to have completed your 60 credits. And the majority of students do progress into year 3. You usually have about 85% of the year 2 class will progress into year 3 and 4. At the minute, there is about 108 students between year 1 and 2 of the diploma. So generally you have classes of roughly about 60 students. The average age of students is 34 years of age. And just a note on fees then, so the yearly fee for the diploma is 3,430 per year or 6,800 per year for the non-EU fee. That's each year of the program. Then the 3rd and 4th years of the program, this is where you are in the degree stage of the program, so years 3 and 4. We tend to have slightly smaller classes, so usually about 50 students. Roughly, if in thinking about the types of students that we have, probably about 80% of the students are Irish, with 20% then from Europe and further afield. Half of our students are Dublin based, with the other half coming from the rest of Ireland, and then we always have a handful of students who are living abroad. And similar to the diploma component, so you will, rather than doing 30 credits each year of the program, as you did in the diploma, you will do 60 credits each year. So 60 credits in year 3 and 60 credits in year 4, which gives you a total of 120 credits at the end of year 4. Add the additional 60 credits you've already done, and that's your 180 credit level 8 honours bachelor degree in business studies. Your degree is awarded similar to any other honours degree: pass, first class honours, second class honours. And again, the fee remains the same as the diploma, so 3,430 per year. EU fee for 2020, 2022, 2023. Each trimester, you have 3 weekends of classes. So that's a full day Friday and a full day Saturday. And we do, attendance really is required to get the most out of the program. You may need an additional weekend if there are exams as part of your assessment. There are very limited exams now across the 4 years of the program, and primarily your assessment is continuous assessment. It's important to attend classes because it means that you're on the campus, you can engage in class discussions, you can use the library resources and the other facilities that we have on the campus. You can meet your classmates, or if you're in a study group, meet up with those students. We do have limited online classes, and generally that tends to be Q&A sessions that the lecturers will organise, or online wrap-up sessions that they'll undertake usually towards the end of the term. We have an additional weekend for our first year orientation. So this year that's going to be on the 2nd and 3rd of September. And that is 2 mornings from about 10 to 1-ish. And I suppose it's a really great way to get to know your classmates, get to meet them before your first full set of lectures, which will take place on the 9th and 10th of September. So you have 2 trimesters each year, an autumn trimester and a spring trimester. In the autumn trimester, you have 3 blocks of classes, and in the spring trimester, the same, you have 3 blocks of classes. If you have exams, they tend to fall in December, usually around the 2nd weekend in December. And we try to keep your exams to a Friday or a Saturday, as you would be in terms of attending classes. And then in the spring, if you do have exams, they will fall in May, usually around the 2nd weekend in May. Again, depending on the specific assessment dates for that year. You will usually have about 6 to 8 weeks notice of the specific exam date, which is set centrally by UCD assessment. So the program is structured into intense weekends of face-to-face lectures with a guided plan for study in between those weekends. And that guided plan for study is given to you through a study guide, which outlines all of the main information for each module that you'll take. But the key thing with it is to find a routine that will allow you to incorporate the study time that you are going to need. Each term, you're going to be doing 3 modules, and each module will have a prescribed textbook, which we suggest that you buy. You'll also be given a study guide, which is basically a booklet about each module, and the study guide will outline everything that you need to know about the module. So the learning outcomes, so what you are expected to achieve at the end of that program, the assessment, your due dates, so your schedule of submissions, topics that are going to be covered, and most importantly, it'll give you a weekly reading planner. And the idea is that you keep on top of that reading each week, which will then mean that you come to class prepared and you can make the most of that lecture time, or that time that you have with the lecture. We suggest it is about 16 to 18 hours a week, but I think our students can attest to that more specifically in terms of what the timing is going to take from you. And of course, that might change depending on whether you're coming up to assessment deadlines. So you may have particularly busy periods, particularly towards the end of the trimester when most of your submissions are due. We use the virtual learning environment and also the study guide as a way to keep you up to date with the class material. So if it is a case that you do miss lectures, which we would discourage, but things happen, you know that there is plenty of material through the study guide, in the sense that you'll know what was going to be covered that particular weekend. You'll know what topics were going to be covered, so you'll know what areas of the textbook you might need to catch up on. You'll also be able to access class slides that the lecturers will post to the virtual learning environment. My role is from an administrative perspective, but also from an academic perspective as well. And this starts with your 2 return to learning modules that you'll undertake in year 1. And so those modules are really to help students who've been out of education for an extended period of time, just to get up and running on the program. So particularly looking at things like academic writing and just how to address and undertake assignments as you start the program, if you haven't been in that space or in the university environment for a long time. Also, if you have any questions in between classes, you can come to myself as the program manager. And also we are there to point you in the right direction. If we don't know the answer to something, we can certainly find out or know who's the best person to contact for you. So it's to have that point of contact within the university, because you're not on the campus all of the time. You may not be familiar with all of the facilities the way the full-timers might be. So we're there to assist you in the absence of you being able to be on the campus all of the time. You're going to be required to undertake a range of assessments on the program, from essays to group projects to case studies, and as I mentioned, to a much lesser extent nowadays, exams. All of your assessments count towards your final module grade, and there'll be different numbers of assessments depending on the module that you're taking. So you may have 2 assessments for one module and 1 large assessment for another module. It depends on each one. We encourage you to create study groups, and we will start this process with you at orientation, really because your classmates are the only ones who can who are in the same position as you. In as much as we can help you and give you advice, we are not the ones who have to undertake the work the way you do. And I think our student panel will suggest, you know, if you can find a really good group that you can work with, they will be the best support that you'll have throughout the 2 to 4 years of the program, depending on how much you wish to do. Everything that you need for each module is housed on our virtual learning environment, which is called Brightspace. And we will introduce this to you at orientation. So just an overview briefly of the curriculum. So this is a general business degree. So you're going to get a flavor of all of the elements of business and management. In addition to that, you're hopefully going to develop a whole range of academic skills and other more transferable skills. So the more essays you have to write, the more presentations you have to give, posters you have to create, the better communication skills you're going to have. You're going to have to apply analytical and critical thinking skills, not only to the topics and the concepts that you're learning about, but also to the information that you're using. And we work on this especially in year one, in your first module, skills for higher education. You're going to be learning things like strategic thinking of particular relevance to business students, and you'll practice some of this when you're looking at case studies with business decisions that you have to make based on the information that you have. So if we just look briefly at year one, so you'll have 6 modules in year one. You've got your 2 skills modules, which are skills for higher education and academic development and transferable skills. You'll also undertake accounting, marketing, future of work in organizations, and management. And then in year 2, you will have people management, which is an introduction to human resource management. You will have business environment, digital business and social media strategy, business economics, so it's a basic introduction to economics, introduction to finance, and business law. Then when you move into year 3 and year 4, again, you'll do 6 modules each year. In year 3, you begin to do some independent research. So you will undertake a small scale research project. And the purpose of that project is to prepare you for the business research project that you will go on to do in year 4. And Orna manages that module, so she may be able to give you a bit more pointers on that if you do have any questions about it. But it is a year-long project. You will undertake your research in an organization of your choice. Most students will use their own organization. It should be on a topic, one of the topics that you've covered over the course of the 4 years. You will have to undertake 2 interviews as part of that process as well. And really the whole point of the project is to demonstrate that you understand how to undertake business research. So it's really about developing business research skills. So you will begin that process in year 3 through what's called the management practice module, where you'll begin to learn about research methods. And you really put that into practice in year 4 when you undertake your business research project module. You will also have the option of doing what's called option modules. You'll choose one module in year 3 and one module in year 4. So you will have your 4 or 5 core modules, and then in year 3 you have a choice between global business and intercultural skills or accounting information for managers. So if you really enjoyed accounting in year 1, you might want to take that to the next step in year 3 and do the more advanced module, accounting information for managers. In year 4, you have a choice between financial management. Again, if you enjoyed the finance module in year 2, you might want to then move to a more advanced phase of it when you get to year 4, or managing people in multinationals. So again, more focused on the HR area. So if you enjoyed those modules, you might want to progress them then in year 4 with that option. So in terms of applications, our applications are open. You apply through the UCD application system. We will keep applications open roughly to about the end of July, early August. If English is not your first language, you do need to provide English language proficiency skill certificate. If we do cater for exemptions, I should mention, from the diploma stage of the program. So you need to have completed a level 7 business qualification that covers the majority of the content of the diploma. If you did want to discuss exemptions, please email me at bbs@ucd.ie and we can discuss that further. So without further ado, that's pretty much my part of the presentation. So if you do have any specific questions for me at any point, you can email me as well at bbs@ucd.ie and I can follow up with you on those. So if anyone wants to ask any questions or wants us to cover anything in particular at this point, we are happy to do so. Or if any of our panel wants to volunteer a bit of information from their own experiences.
I don't see anything in the chat. Are you there, folks? I suppose I'll kick off, Kate,
yes,
give a bit of an overview. So for those of you who are listening, my background is very relevant to what was read out. I see the average age was 34, they say. So I was well above that when I started in 2016. I was 40. But it's firstly, congratulations on even dialing in to be thinking about taking the best step you'll ever take in your life. And that's what it was for me. When I started in 2016, I had a leaving cert. That was it. It was 23 years out of education. So I would imagine that some of you are probably feeling that and nervous about that, but I can guarantee you, I'm in a master's program now, and it's in a different college that I won't mention, but the difference in support between the two institutions are like chalk and cheese. So you will be supported throughout your program in UCD. That was for me the best, probably one of the best parts of it. Just the level of support was there, both from the faculty and other students. You're never really alone. So it's a scary step to take. But if I can do it, you can do it. As I said, there's a 23-year gap between my leaving cert and my college experience, and I have no regrets. In fact, it's 2 years on and I still can't let go. I'm a little bit jealous hearing about looking back on the 4 years and what's ahead of you, because for me, it was all a positive experience. No regrets.
Would Sinead or Evelyn, do you have a bit of thoughts on sort of your own motivation for starting the program?
I suppose, yeah. So thanks, Kate. So I've just finished year 3. I originally went into the program. I was adamant I'd only do the first 2 years, the higher diploma, but kind of gets under your skin. You do enjoy it. It is hard work, but you get a lot of satisfaction from it. And I found that I was able to take some of the skills I'd learned in class back into my day job, which was really nice. Just as an example, this year, I would have had a lot of accounting type work to do, and I was able to knowledgeably go into meetings with college accountants and understand terminology that I wouldn't have been able to have understood in the past. So it's little things like that that kind of motivate you and kind of bring you along. So I'm going into year 4. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I'd say in terms of the time, I think you're right, Kate, it is around 16 hours a week, but that tends to frighten people at the beginning. I know I was put off by that at the start, but when you break it up into your evening work and your weekend work, and if you stay really structured and try and keep a routine, you do actually get there. And you've got to remember, you're going to have your midterm breaks and your Christmas, and then you have your summer. So it's not a full year, so you do get your breaks in between. And just to say, I really enjoyed it, very well supported. I kind of probably had a little bit different experience than some people because COVID had hit and we moved all online. But we got through that as well. And again, it was very well supported by the school. Age-wise, there's a nice mix of ages in the class. I'm on the more mature side, but there were also people in their early 20s who were just in the workforce, older groups like myself, and then a few people in the middle. And actually at the start, you kind of wonder, is that going to work out for you? But it's actually nice to kind of feed off different people's experiences as well. I was a little bit, oh God, I don't know if I want to go into a class full of people in their early 20s, but I learned a lot from them. I think they learned a little from me. And you do find it's really nice to go into that mixed age group because you do become a little bit disconnected and out of touch yourself. So having a few younger people in the class kind of livens it up and kind of keeps you more innovative and a bit more hip on what's going on in the world. That's it. Like, I'm happy, like same as Rory, to take any questions. So here, whenever anyone has any questions.
Evelyn, do you want to say?
Yeah, sure. So I've just finished first year. Definitely will echo what Orna has said, that I can't believe first year is over. It just literally flew by. And I genuinely mean that, because I was in your shoes this time last year, a little bit later actually in the process. It was around August when I finally decided to push the button on this. Kind of like everyone, had a bit of a chip in my shoulder, wanted to do this for the last 10 years, only had my leaving cert like Rory, and just went straight into working, you know, and then as I got older and I progressed further in my career, I was like, okay, this has to happen now or else I'm just not doing it. And I kept going over and back for about 10 years. Eventually I said, okay, now is the time, it's kind of now or never. And like that, just haven't looked back. I was absolutely petrified when I heard the 16 to 18 hours per week. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to be able, and I have no kids, so I can't even imagine how people would manage it with kids. This is what my thought process was. But honestly, when you are in it, and after the first weekend of lectures, you're so buzzed for it that you want to come home, you want to almost turn on the laptop that Saturday or that Sunday morning and just get stuck in and just start organizing your notes, or if some of the lectures are recorded and they're up that week, you know, you want to watch back on them because you don't want to forget. And I also think if you're deciding to do this, you're investing in yourself, so it's only yourself that you're going to let down. That definitely played a huge part for me, that like I'm only letting myself down. My parents aren't going to ground me if I don't pass this assignment, or you know, I'm not going to get in trouble. It's for me. So I think that definitely helped a lot, or motivated me a lot. But again, echo huge support. The lectures themselves are fantastic. Really, really enjoyed the content of them. Loved accounting, was totally shocked by that. Loved Celine, like just clicked straight away with it. May not for everyone. I struggled with marketing, didn't particularly gel with that subject at all, whereas other people loved it. So I would say, if I was to give any advice, I would just say do it. If you're here on this information evening, you're somewhat leaning towards doing it. I'm looking forward to year 2. I'm petrified about year 3 and 4, but look, we have to get through year 2 first. And as I said, and as Rory and Sinead said, definitely no regrets. I'm kind of looking forward to September, but dreading the essays. I won't lie. Essays kill me.
Thanks, Evelyn. I think that's really good advice. I think it is a program that you do kind of day by day, week by week, and kind of the trimester it's kind of done, and then before you know it, you're through year 1, and time passes quickly. So I think for anyone who's thinking of going ahead, you know, think about getting through the first trimester and the first year, and your diploma very soon follows afterwards. But it is amazing how quickly time passes on the program once you kick off. Do you want to say something on that, Rory? Because you're well out the other side now, and you've gone back for post-grad, so we can't have traumatized you too much.
For more punishment. About the time, did you say? Or what was it, the time of it?
Just the pace of the program, that once you're on it, it is a case of just kind of trying to keep on it kind of every week, every 2 weeks, and the trimester very quickly moves then.
I think the other point is that there's the pace, but you're also brought along. You're not like, no one's going to get you just dump this amount of work in front of you. It doesn't work like that. It's rationed out in a very manageable way. I have to really kind of point out the value of these. You might have, are they still called academic competencies, those initial modules?
Yeah, it's skills for higher education.
Okay, the dog didn't like that, but so skills for higher education.
Yeah.
so I call them the how to be a student modules, and they really set you up. So I mean, you're going to start in first year and you're going to kind of learn how to be a student. So you're really set off on the right track. And as regards time management and this 16 to 18 hours a week, that really is up to you. It depends on what you want to get from the course. And you know, I have to give a cautionary note here on becoming addicted to high grades. It's really maybe not a good thing. Like, I mean, you have to ask yourself, because that's what happened to me, and I put myself under massive pressure. And there are people who have come out the other side of my class with degrees. I have a degree. Yeah, I got the results I wanted, but at what cost? Look at the grade. Yeah, so it really is down to you. What do you want to get out of the course? Do you want the degree? Do you want really high grades? You know, you can manage your own workload, and there's loads of different ways to fit in the study as well, and we can come on to that if anyone wants. So I don't know, anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say the same. I would say it definitely is dependent on what you want to achieve. I work from home, so I'm in a huge advantage. And as I said, I don't have kids, so I'm probably not the best person to say, because I found that I was able to grab an hour or two during the day if I was in between meetings, and I'd maybe write a paragraph or two of an assignment that I'd been maybe researching. The key for me though was, after that block release, to come home and just flake into it straight away. As Rory says, no one wants you to fail. Like, the assignments are well spread out. You have plenty of time. Like, you have 3-4 weeks in between each one, which is totally manageable, but only if you start that week. I had some people in my class, and they were like sitting down the night before, and Kate talks about this in skills in the first trimester, and I would have palpitations. Like, I couldn't, and even when I had to do the group assignment for marketing, one of the first things I said is, lads, I'm not going to be able to leave it 2 weeks before, because I just won't be able to manage my time with work, and if I'm traveling or whatever. So it's just about being, I suppose, a bit with group assignments, definitely being upfront, like speak up and be like, that's not the way if we want to do lay out what everyone's doing, I'll do my work, and if you guys want to leave it 2 weeks before, that's up to you, but I'm going to do mine like more or less straight away. And that's what I found was the best way to get it going, was to just start straight away. And then next thing you know, you're at the next block release and your assignment is handed up, and then you're going towards Christmas. It really does just fly by. I can't get over it. It's gone so fast.
And I had kids, by the way. I've had kids. I haven't got rid of them yet. 2 and 4. They were 2 and 4 when I started. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about how that went, feel free to ask. I don't want to lead things, but any questions from the group at all? If you ask questions, we'll actually answer.
Yeah.
They don't control us.
Can I ask a question, just how you got into your rhythm with study? Because the first couple of weeks or few months, it can take time to find your groove in terms of what times of the day or the weekends. How did you kind of settle into what worked for you guys?
For me anyway, it was just, I liked the routine. So what I used to do was I used to try and catch up on my study on a week evening, and then use the weekends to write assignments. For me, that just worked. And that's how I really structured my study plan. And then if I was coming up towards an exam, I probably would study a lot more for just exam material. But again, like Evelyn, I would have been very obsessed about getting assignments in on time, and I'm not really good at that last minute chaotic rush. So I tend to like to be organized. I think you kind of need to have decent enough organizational skills to take on the course, and if you don't have them, you will soon attain them as time goes on, because you when you have a full-time job, you have to be very organized to get through the workload. But again, with the workload, I think when I first saw the study guides, I too panicked, because they tend to be hundreds of pages long. when you, after your first weekend, your first block release, that kind of settles down and you kind of, you're not as nervous then. And then by the second weekend, you really kind of have an idea of what you need to look at in the guide. The guides can be a little bit daunting at the beginning. But it settles down, you just get into a routine with us.
Mhm.
Yeah, you get better as you go along.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
better at being a student. I was very organized. Just the girls are mentioning organization. I was very organized. I mean, when I say organized, I'm not just referring to college work. I actually had to get organized about my whole life.
Yeah.
So I would schedule in my calendar. Google Calendar is what I used. Tech nerd, but I mean, I would schedule in family time just as much as I was scheduled in study. And now it's not necessarily that you have to stick rigidly to this. It's putting things in a calendar so you can move things around as life gets in the way. And the important thing is to work to a schedule. And actually, the biggest benefit of working to a schedule is that it'll massively reduce your stress. I know I've got an assignment, but I know I've got these times blocked out to study. I know I haven't played with the kids yesterday, but I know I'm giving them 6 hours of crack on Saturday or whatever it is,
I think sometimes when people are on the program, they feel early on, gosh, I should give up my hobbies or the sport and it's actually the opposite. It's the one time you really need to make time for whatever you enjoy to do. So sometimes people feel, gosh, I'll clear the decks of Thursday night football or whatever it might be. But our advice would be to make sure that you keep those going and just make good use of the time you have to study, as opposed to missing out on any of your hobbies or sports or whatever it might be.
There is an add-on to that. I feel like I'm speaking too much, but there is just as it occurs to me, I was the same. I actually, technically, I started a hobby back in 2016. So I was very much on top of my exercise. What I did give up, and this is what I did give up, is a few bad habits, right? So try you do have to kind of psych yourself up for 4 years, and so don't give up the good habits, but think of a few things in your life that now might be an opportunity to adjust them. For example, for years I was a glass of red wine every night type of guy, and it was kind of part of my ritual. I get home from work and I do whatever I do, get the kids to bed, and then I'd have a glass of wine, and when the glass of wine hit my lips, that was my ritual, and that was the time to relax. And when I started in UCD, I was like, I was never happy about it, never comfortable with it, and I was like, you know what, maybe now's the time to give this up. So what the reason I bring it up is, when I gave up just one glass of wine a night, I slept better, so much better. So it's stuff like that. It's like, what bad habits could you kick, and what good habits could you form around your 4 years or 2 years or whatever you decide to do that will help you get through. So keep the good and kick out the bad.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, John, do you want to say something about, as a lecturer on the program, what your experiences of the students are?
Oh God.
Bearing in mind you've had nearly all of these students.
No, because I wasn't expecting that. No, I think they've all kind of hit all the pointers. I think it's in the first year, there's always a bit of a shock on the first module, because you introduce what it is, you talk about study guides, you talk about what the assessment is, and everyone's going, we have to do what by when? But you encourage the questions, you have the conversations with people, and what's remarkable, I find, as a lecturer, because I'm not there the way you are, Kate, is that when you come back for the second weekend, it's as if they've cracked the code, and they're definite, and it's that quick. So by the second block release weekend of the first module, they're kind of going, yeah, I know what it is, and I know what I have to do. And I think Rory was talking about how you set your expectations for the whole course. And it's really kind of freaky, because by that second module, you can feel that people have set expectations, whether they've said it to themselves or not. You can see who the ones are who are there just for the general conversation and the learning. You can see who's there for the academic excellence. You can see who's there for the grades. And, you know, those attributes change over time, but not significantly. Like, you know, they form really quickly. But the really interesting thing is how quickly you crack the code. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you do see that change in students when they come from that first weekend in September, and then by the time they hit November, there's that confidence of I am a student now. I have the right to be here.
Yeah.
I know how to, you know, I've written an assignment, I've gotten a grade, I've gotten feedback, you know, maybe I can do this.
Yeah, and like the others, I don't know because no one lecturer knows what every other lecturer is like, but I get the impression that it's overall a very, very interactive course. There feels like there's an awful lot of conversation that goes on. I like conversation in lectures. I mean, I think Rory may remember that, because I think that's where the best learning actually happens. And I think once the students realize that this is actually a place of conversation, that learning emerges, and learning is a thing you do in conversation as well as in private, then it becomes much more fun and much easier.
Great, thanks a million for that, John. Rory, do you want to add something there?
Try I'm always talking. I just looking at the time, and I think I just, for the people who are listening who are kind of on the fence, and I don't know if that's the case, or do people who, I'm not sure, people who dialed in already kind of committed to the course or not, but you'll get so much from more from the course than you think. It's beyond an education, like the difference it made to me, the confidence, just to kind of broaden my horizons and realize that I'm capable of much more than I thought I was. I mean, really, it kind of, I use the word transformative about my experience in UCD. Just, there are no words kind of to explain how valuable it's been to me. And it's not just the education, it's not just the confidence you get from it. Actually, you meet some just really nice people along the way, other students that I'm still friends with, you know. You'd be surprised how close a bond you'll develop with people, even only seeing them once every few weeks, because you're on the chat all week. So I highly recommend it. I'm sure Sinead would kind of mirror what I'm saying, and then maybe Evelyn.
Yeah, I agree, Rory. You do make friends. Again, I think a little bit different for me because I was stuck in the middle of the COVID, but like lots of WhatsApp, and we're going back into year 4 now. Just something I did forget to mention is that I went into the course with a preconceived idea of the modules I thought I would really like and the ones I would hate.
Yeah.
And then it turned out the ones I hated were the ones I loved. Yeah. And it was the opposite for me. So I originally thought, oh, I'm going to hate economics and I'm going to hate accounting. And oh my God, I'm never going to get through those two. And how am I going to do that? And how will I bypass those two? And they were the ones I ended up loving the most. Sorry, John. And they were the ones I really, really, really enjoyed. Like, oh my God, so much. So if you think you've got a weakness and you think that, oh, there's something you're not going to be able to do, you will really surprise yourself when you go into class. It may be that you will love that subject so much. And I just wanted to say that.
Even with the research, I remember actually Rory asking you came in and spoke to us last September, and my biggest fear was research. Like, what does this mean when academic students talk about research? Like, what am I researching, and how am I going to research to write an essay, and like what does all that mean? And it's almost like definitely Kate's module and Jer's module with the learning how to be a student, that really pay attention to that, because I naively kind of dismissed it for the first trimester and was like, oh yeah, okay, I know how to do that, and then, you know, I wasn't happy, I wasn't too excited about my first results that I got in my first assignment and stuff. So that really brought me back down to earth. But then it just kind of clicks as well that okay, this is what's in front of me. This is what I have to address right now. Stop thinking about Christmas. Stop thinking about next summer. Just do your essay that's in front of you right now. And then you start writing down things, or you start saving links, or you start highlighting paragraphs, whether that's online or in a textbook or whatever. And then next thing it comes together. But I make it sound so simple. It wasn't. Like, it does still keep me awake at night, depending on the subject that I'm talking about. But it does click. I don't know what other way to describe it other than it does click. Because I suppose you wanted to. And to echo Sinead, it was actually accounting that put me off doing a degree, in particular a business degree, for so long, because I just hated it. I did it for my Leaving Cert and I was so bad at it. And honestly, after doing accounting in the first semester, I said to Celine, I said, I'd nearly think about going into accounting as a full-time job. And that was only after doing 3 lectures and 1 exam, like 2 assignments, 1 exam. And I was coming away for a subject that I hated, dreaded. I was saying, oh God, I could actually see myself doing this as a career. So definitely echo Sinead says that. Don't let that put you off, because you'll surprise yourself 100%. Over time now. Sorry, Kate.
No, that's fine. No, that's perfect. Look, I just want to say thank you very much to Rory, Evelyn, Sinead for giving us some of your time this evening. We're going to take a little break now, and then we will come back with John's magnificent lecture at 7 o'clock. So if anybody wants to have a little comfort break, feel free to do so now. I will pause the recording, and all right, we're on.
So am I just kicking off, Kate?
Yeah, go for it.
That's very strange, because I have no idea who's out there. If this is to work really well, it'd be nice if I can ask people out there some questions. Jerry, how are you? And it'd be a huge help if people could respond to those questions. So I'm going to start off by saying, if you're okay with me asking you some questions, can you either type yes into the message box now, into the chat, or if you like, you can just raise the thumbs up. Yes, Jerry, good. Thank you. Oh, good. Yes, super. Yes. No one's using the thumb. Oh, yes, in capitals. No one's using the thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to assume that enough people are going to play with me while we have this lecture. The purpose of this is just to give you a sample of what a lecture, I suppose, looks and feels like, what its structure is and what goes on inside it. So I really much more, I enjoy being in a room with people a lot more than I enjoy Zoom. I think Zoom's got, it's very good in some ways, but it's got some kind of limitations. Our experience of lectures and how we build them and how we deliver them really is based on the lectures we've attended over the course of our education. And it's been my experience that there is a way, and most lecturers, to my knowledge, follow the lecture format. So what's going to happen on day 1 on your first module is your lecturer is going to introduce themselves. We'll get to that in a moment. Then they're going to introduce the module. They're going to say what's going to happen over the three block weekends, what's going to happen in this particular trimester. Then they're going to manage your expectations. They're going to tell you what the assessments are. They're going to tell you when they are and when you're expected to deliver them. And they may speak about what the evaluation, the grading process is, so you know what's expected of it. Once that's done, they'll probably introduce the lecture for the day. So they're going to say what they're going to say. And then they'll deliver the lecture. Now, how a lecture is delivered, it's a question of personal choice and personal style, and it changes over time. Some people work really closely with the slides they're using. Oh, by the way, a lot depends on the nature of the subject as well. Some people have mastered the art of speaking for 3.5 hours nonstop. Others prefer a conversation. I prefer a conversation. Some people like to have a discussion around particular case studies. But in general, what's going to happen is you're going to be looking at some theories, you're going to be looking at some models, some ways of doing things. You're going to be comparing those to your experience. You're going to be asking questions around those. You're going to be interrogating those theories, those models, and those tools. And that will be the content of the lecture. Then at the end, they're going to say what they've said, and that's really just summing up the key points of the lecture. And then they're going to have some questions. So that's the basic format. So what I thought I'd do is go through that format very quickly. And I'll say, this is me. So I've been lecturing at Quinn since about 2016 on and off. My daytime job is I'm a consultant. I work in policy and strategy development. I work with local government. I work with national agencies. And my area of expertise is the culture and creative industries. A bit like I'd say some of you, I returned to education after a gap. So my primary degree was 1984 and my master's was in 2014. There's some other stuff in there, but prior to the master's, I was mostly a theatre producer and director, strangely enough. So I've got a really wide range. I'm the opposite of Liam Neeson. I do not have a particular set of skills. There's a wide set of skills, but I do have a particular perspective. And I think one of the values that I bring to this area of discussion is that I've never really had a job. I've been contracted by lots of organizations. So I've had the pleasure of looking at organizations almost as an outsider to see how they work and to see what they do. Without having the pressure of being inside it. And that's really valuable. That's me. A thing that people have said, I think in the earlier introduction, is the idea of the reading around the module. I'm going to just say something very quick about that. I think it was Evelyn was saying that the module guides were kind of scary in their size. They can be, but they're a really, really good summary of all the necessary information that's going to be discussed and explored in the course of a module. And being familiar with the module guide is really, really good practice. There's usually a textbook that's suggested for the course. That's a great source, not just of information and knowledge and skills, but it'll also point you toward other things that need to be read. The slides, the stuff we use in lectures, all this stuff, they're a memory tool. So I really wouldn't rely on them too much. For myself, what I would say when you're in the whole learning process is your experience is your biggest resource. And that really can't be said often enough, because all of the theories, all of the models, all of the tools really only make sense in terms of your experience. So we've got to be constantly asking, do these theories, these models, these tools that we're looking at around management, do they match our experience of it? If they do, great, where do they match? If they don't match, why not? What's going on? Using our experience, if you like, to evaluate and measure what we're receiving, the information we're receiving, is also a great way to test the limits of our own understanding. And also sometimes to test the limits of the ideas that we're receiving. Okay, so that's a little note on reading around a module. And I need us to move on. What happens now? I've got no module to introduce, so we're going to skip that piece. I'm going to have to manage the expectations of you now. There's no test, obviously, no exam, no assessments, but I'm going to ask questions. So you're all familiar with Zoom. It looks like everyone can use the chat box function. So tonight's theme: what are our experiences of management and by extension of leadership? That's what we're going to try and tease out over the next short while. This is where I want you to start using the chat box. And this is where I go quiet. There are 3 questions here. What do we do when we do management? So when we're managing, what is it we do? What are all these things we do that make us feel like this is management, this is managing? The second question is, what do we need to be able to do management? You know, when we're actually in charge of something, when we're managing something, what do we need to do it? And what's the purpose of it? Okay, those are 3 questions. I'm going to stop talking for 2 minutes. And in the first 2 minutes, I'd like you to think about the answers to what is it we do when we do management. Try and keep the answers short. And then we'll throw them up on the screen. Is that okay? 2 minutes, off you go. What? Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to cut the response time down to him. Oh, wait now. We make sure things run smoothly. Okay. We include everyone. We give direction. Kate, are you allowed to answer? We operate a system. Plan, organize. What else? So what have we got? We lead people, we lead, we make sure things run smoothly, we include everyone, we give direction, we operate a system, we plan or we organize. That's really interesting. Let's move on to the next question, shall we? And again, like, no one's given any grades for this, so whatever comes to your mind, throw it out there. What do we need in order to do these things? What do we need to do management? Let's give it a minute. What do we need to do management? Anybody? Oh, policies and procedures, a plan, a set of rules. Listen to people's views. Is it the same person? It is. What else? A plan for the, so we lead, we give direction, we make sure things run smoothly, and to do that, we have a plan, a set of rules, policies, procedures. We've got a strategic plan. What else? We control a team. Let's move on to one last minute. What is the purpose of all of this? Of all of this leading and having plans and controlling? What's the purpose of it? 1 minute. What's the purpose? To end up with a quality product or service. Completing a task and running a smooth business. To succeed. To achieve a goal. Increase efficiency and effectiveness of their employees. What else? Anything else? Those are great. Those are, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just read back over what we've written. I'm not going to use a whiteboard here because it'll just take too long and interfere. So have a little, if you can see it in the chat box, I'm sure you can all see it, but I'm going to read it out just to make sure you've all got what you've said. So in answer to the first question, what do we do when we do management? It was lead people. We lead, we make sure things run smoothly. We include everyone. We give direction. We operate a system. We plan and we organize. The things we need in order to do that is a plan for the business, a set of rules, policies and procedures, to listen to people's views, a strategic plan. We need to control. We need a team. And the reason we do it, and the reason we use all of these things, these plans and rules, etc., is to succeed, to complete a task and run a smooth business, to achieve a goal, to increase efficiency and effectiveness of their employees. So if you want, you can type a response in the box, or you can just open your mic and you can just tell me what you think. But what are you noticing about all of those comments? Anybody at all? Do you see any similarities? Do you see any common themes emerging? Do you see any anomalies within it? Are they all in agreement, or is there something, different management styles? That's Ivan, can you tell me a bit more about what different management styles? That's really interesting, because Ivan's saying there's different management styles, but Jerry's saying we're all saying the same things, but in different ways. So the two questions, Ivan, can you tell me what the different management styles are that you see? And Jerry, can you say what the same things are that we're all saying? Can you summarize them in a single word or a short phrase?
So I suppose in the first one there, we're all kind of saying that we need a plan and to organize ourselves. So we need a plan or a system.
Is that Jerry?
That's me, yeah.
Yeah.
So we need
so you're saying we all need a plan, yeah?
A plan or a system, like, so that we're all saying we're all on the same team, you know? So
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
More do you differently.
Yeah. Ivan, can you identify those different management styles?
Yeah, one is kind of more, someone had said to control, and that would be more of a kind of an autocratic style.
Yeah.
Top-down style, I'd say, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe some other people were kind of trying to include more people, and that would be more kind of a democratic style of management, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just going to move on, because that's like what you've done just as a group in that simple exercise, is you've identified probably one of the great, debates within management theory, which is, do we actually need somebody to manage us? Or can we manage ourselves? Does a team need management? Does it need someone up there telling us what to do, directing us? Does a team, and this is another interesting thing about organizations and organizational culture, you may have all the written policies and procedures you have that are required of your business, but more than likely your business is running according to a set of very deep unspoken and unwritten cultural norms or cultural rules. It's running itself. There's also the phenomenon that an awful lot of people experience, is that sometimes managers can disrupt efficiency because they're trying to leave a stamp, to make a mark, to further their career. The idea of managing presupposes that there are two very different, I suppose, kinds of people, or two very different qualities of task. One that requires thought, consideration, and planning, and one that doesn't, one that needs to be told. Which one is correct is probably still open for consideration. And there's a follow-on question, because you've already brought it up. The idea of the manager as a leader, because the idea of leadership is a thing all by itself. Is a leader a manager? So I'm going to ask you a question around that, because it's a key one. What is the difference between leadership and management? Okay, if you can keep the answer short, give it 1 minute. What is the difference between leadership and management? I should put a timer on, shouldn't I? Leadership and management, the difference. Anybody? I'm sure you've noticed, but leadership's become a really fashionable word. Everyone can be a leader at work to get job done. That's a really interesting observation, because there's a phenomenon, which I've forgotten the name of now. Leadership shows example. Management is more to do with dealing with people and strategy. Interesting. Leadership shows example. Management is more to do with dealing with people and strategy. I like that. There's a phenomenon, and you come across it in, I think, in managing change. But sometimes when you look at an organization, the people with the titles of leadership and the titles of managers are not the ones who will get the job done when you're trying to move from one state to another. There tends to be in organizations invisible leaders, people who've been there for quite some time who are listened to. So while the management may make an announcement or try and deliver some new initiative, the people who have to respond to that new initiative will probably have a conversation amongst themselves. And there's probably somebody in that group who they listen to. And that person is actually managing the situation. That person is the actual leader. And identifying those people can be key to actually successfully, to use these interesting words, controlling or managing an organization. Here's what some of the theory will tell you, okay? There's the idea that managers have influence. And they have influence in different ways. So a manager, the part of what managing is about planning, as you said. It's about the overall direction of work. There's an interesting question around that, is when you get down to the team level, does that team need to be given a direction? Because frequently, managers come and go, but the team continues to do its work, or the organization continues to do what it does. And sometimes they manage to do that despite the planning. There's the organizing, which is the allocating of resources, time, and effort. But who's to say that the manager is the person who knows how to do that best? The idea of generating effort and commitments towards objectives. What happens when you leave a team or a bunch of people to be responsible for their own motivation and not assume that they need to be motivated? And the idea of controlling. Sometimes, if you set unrealistic targets for people, then progress is quite slow. But if you change the objectives, then progress improves enormously, even though the same thing is happening. So what is it we're actually controlling? But you can apply these things of planning, organizing, leading to pretty much everything, including getting yourselves through this degree. There's another approach to all of this, which basically says that managers are responsible for transforming inputs. Now, you're going to find that management theory loves a good diagram more than anything else. A good diagram, preferably with circles. And this is a classic. So it's the idea that there is an external environment, which there is, and in that external environment, you bring the inputs into your organization, and they include people, money, materials, all that kind of stuff. You bring that into the organization. There are tasks that happen within that organization's process, and those tasks need to be controlled, planned for, organized. And that allegedly is the job of the leader. And then stuff is produced, goods, services, reputation, waste, etc. And the job of the manager is to do that controlling, planning, and organizing piece as efficiently as possible. Again, that's the theory. There's a slightly more ambitious one, which says that the manager's task is to manage the context. Now, the context can be internal or external. So you can try and manage internal elements of the organization, the people around you, the allocation of resources. Managing an external environment is more difficult, but that means being aware of what's happening in the world outside you so that you can respond to it or anticipate it as it happens. And of course, the idea of managing past, present, and future events. If something that has just happened is left unchecked and allowed to continue, it can impact very negatively on the present and the future. So in a sense, you are managing those things that have just happened, are currently happened, and may happen in the future. So of course, all of these things interact with each other. So it would seem like the idea of management is quite a complex process, trying to understand and interpret and literally manage an awful lot of different inputs to try and get the optimum outcome, whatever that may be. The summary around all of this is the idea that all of this management is about managing to add value. But there's a whole range of assumptions in this. The idea that we live in a world of managed organizations and we depend on those organizations. There's assumptions underlying that. The idea that the management task is to create organizations that work, that add value to the resources they use. But it can be argued that unmanaged organizations also work. And one of the most remarkable phenomena, I suppose, in recent years is, well, in the last half century, is the movement away from hierarchical organizations to horizontal organizations, from the vertical to the flat. That the fewer layers of management you have, the more effective you become. And then, of course, the very idea of value is highly subjective. There was a famous theory, the idea of shareholder value, that the only purpose of management was to create value for the shareholders, to make sure that they got richer. And that was the purpose of management. I think it was initiated by, again, the GM of Ford Motors back in the 60s, I think. I've forgotten his name. That same person later went on to say that the shareholder theory of value is probably the worst idea in the entire world. Because if we look at one of the things that we said in our earlier conversation, I just went back to it. To end up with a quality product or service. But how do we define quality in that context? And what has it taken for us to end up with a quality product or service? What about the nature of the inputs that we have put into our process? What about the political and environmental impact of those things? And what about the process itself? The way we deal with people, the way we treat people within the organization. Do we need to sacrifice those things to end up with a quality product or service for the market? Or do we need to think that there are multiple values that we need to produce, some of which will end up in a market, others will not? Now, when we have to move the chat box, sorry, because it's hiding my screen. All of those different theories contain these ideas of determinism, choice, and interaction within them, okay? The deterministic approach to management would say that the manager is always at the mercy of the context, be it the organization around them or the environment the organization is in. And it's the context that determines the manager's actions. Then there's the reverse of that, that has this kind of heroic notion of what the manager is, that the manager's actions determine the context. Although it is possible that in many organizations, managers are carried. We may think that it's their actions that are determining the context, but in fact, the context has been determined by a whole range of other actors within the organization. But there is this notion that the manager's actions can shape the context. And then you have the interactive model. I suppose it's almost a contingent model, but that what we do might change the context, but if it does, the context will in turn change what we do in the future. Are we in fact able to have an impact? Or are we part of a really complex system? A couple of names to remember, you know, with management. It's really some really great theorists. Rosemary Stewart did some fantastic work, and I'm very fond of her. But she described management, the practice of management, as being interrupted, fragmented, and diverse. And maybe you can see this in your work lives. The manager who never seems to sit still, but who is always answering a call, having a meeting, moving from one task to the next, dealing with a wide range of things. And you kind of wonder, how strategic is all of that? Then, of course, you got Mintzberg. And Mintzberg talked about 10 management roles in 3 groups, where the manager has to be informational, the manager has to be interpersonal, and the manager has to be decisional. So you've got to be all things to all people, which is kind of a hell of an ask of any one person, if you think about it. Mintzberg worked with a man called Gosling, and they came up with the 5 minds of the manager, which I'm very fond of. Because those 5 minds you're going to be using in the course of any undergraduate degree, because you're going to be managing yourself. And that's the reflective mindset, thinking about what you do, why you do it, what your personal objectives are, what your behavior is like, why you respond in this way to that particular stimulus. The managing organizations, the analytic mindset, where you're planning stuff out, you're doing the process diagrams and the organograms, you're doing all of that. There's the managing context, or the worldly mindset. And that really is, I suppose, the bit that takes you outside the building. So you're aware of what's going on in the world. You're anticipating the changes that are coming at your organization. You're looking at what other people are doing. You're building relationships outside your own business context. There's the idea of managing relationships that ties in with that, the collaborative mindset, where it's all about who you can work with and what you can achieve. And then the manager has to be managing change, which is the action mindset. Change is a constant in every organization, be it incremental or be it significant. But change is always going on. Your ability to surf that change, to manage and direct that change is essential. This one I love, back from 1988. And Luthans noticed that what managers seemed to do was they networked. And if anybody's a fan of that wonderful US drama, what's it called? The advertising one. All of that is about networking, because it's about personal promotion. It's about career development. So managers network, and those who achieved promotion spent more time networking and politicking than their colleagues. Those who were effective, however Luthans defines effective, we can only assume he means effective. He means effective in terms of the organization's output. They spend more time on communication and human relations. And in 2009, the link was confirmed between networking and career success. Which again throws up questions around those earlier ideas of, do managers actually lead, or what's actually going on there? This is from a guy called Russ Vince. Vince is really interesting. Vince is very concerned with the psychodynamics of organizations. So I'm going to ask you a question you can turn your mic on to respond to this if you would, or you can pop it into the chat. When you look at Vince's list of what leaders do, bearing in mind that we tend to conflate the idea of leadership and management quite frequently. What are your thoughts? What's your response to this list? Leaders help determine the meaning of events. They build agreement around objectives and strategies. They build task commitment and optimism. They develop mutual trust and cooperation, etc., etc. I suppose the question I'm asking is, have you experienced that in your managers or your leaders or in your management experience or your leadership experience?
I suppose trust is a big thing. The people that you're leading, you must bring them on board. They must have faith in you.
Yeah.
And it's a team effort then.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you recognize that? That's Jerry, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Would you recognize those behaviors in people that you have worked under or worked with?
Yeah, they'll click, yeah.
Anybody else? Do you recognize those traits, those behaviors? Russ went and asked some questions based on this list. And based on a number of things around those questions, he came back with this. What leaders do. They control or they undermine the meaning of events for personal or political reasons. They create conflicts around objectives and strategies. They get in the way of task commitment and they can foster cynicism and apathy. They're often not trusted or trusting. They weaken collective identity. They make decisions in isolation. They're disorganized and they fragment activities. They discourage and avoid sharing because it's not to their advantage. They can't get hold of the resources they want and they complain about the lack. They undermine and disempower. They're dismissive of ethics and social justice and regularly abuse the authority of their role. So my question is, does anybody recognize that leader? Have you seen them? Anybody? I only have, by the way, I threw in this slide earlier on today just because of a contract I finished last week. I won't tell you who it was for, obviously, but there was quite a lot of this going on in the organization in question. So I suppose the point of all of that was just to introduce some of the ideas, some of the names, some of the thinkers, some of the questions we need to ask when we're thinking about management. Yes, there's a series of, or a set of tools and a set of skills that can be acquired and deployed and used. But fundamentally, management is a human activity. It brings people into contact with other people. It creates very strange relationships sometimes. It can be a remarkable relationship and incredible things can be done. But like all relationships, it can also be difficult and challenging. The key thing I would say is that we need to be thinking critically about management, both the theory of it and the practice of management that we engage in at all times. And we need to be thinking about the assumptions that we're bringing both to our management and to our thinking about management. When we say we need to control somebody, what are the assumptions underlying that? When we say that managers lead, isn't the assumption that there are people who are not managers who need leading? How would they feel about that? When we say that we need to have policies and procedures and rules, what's the assumption underlying that? Because there is an assumption. And if we don't address the assumptions, if we don't identify them and call them out, things can get quite difficult and quite challenging, because the assumptions we have about managing may not be the assumption or the assumptions held by those that we're trying to manage. And that can be a problem. So think critically. This is one of my favorite quotes, by the way, because when you're talking about the theory and the tools and the techniques of management, what we're talking about is models, ways of thinking about the world, ways of looking at the world. And there was a statistician called George Box who once said that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So be questioning our assumptions at all times. Remember that that no single one of the tools or techniques or theories are completely correct, nor are they useful or appropriate for every situation. But some of them are useful in some situations. And that's it. Any questions? Why can't I stop sharing? There we are.
Thanks a million for that, John. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to shout or post something in the chat.
Well, thank you for, by the way, sorry, Kate, thank you for taking part. And thank you for throwing in your suggestions. I really appreciate that.
Yes, thanks to everyone. And I just want to say what that really got me thinking about, and a point I probably forgot to make as well, is that, you know, you are going to have to take a stance on, you know, on the concepts, on the models, on the theories that you're going to be learning about. So this is actually a really good example of the type of thing that you will be asked to do in assessments, and you will be asked to do when you're in classes. And while there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, if you can argue your case, you know, that's how you're going to succeed in the program. So on that note, I will stop the recording.